We're live at 2020 CapCon, and today we're bringing you updates from BOD, and Nabil's got some kind of surprise question for me.
You know I love to put Geoff on the spot.
Welcome back to Talking Real, brought to you by the Oklahoma Association of Realtors. You're tuned into episode 109, remote, out of the studio, coming to you live from CapCon 2020.
From the Embassy Suites, downtown Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Nabil, how's your day?
Fantastic. We just got done with the first day, quote unquote, of CapCon.
Yeah.
The real thing really kicks off tomorrow.
Yep.
We had some meetings today and our board meeting.
Yeah.
And now the major investor event.
Got a major investor reception tonight. That should be a good time. So how to get a podcast episode out for everybody, though. We've got a little bit of information, kind of an update on what happened at BOD today. The board of directors meeting that you can look forward to a membership vote in the future. And then we've also got just a little bit of an update on kind of what's going on with CapCon tomorrow. Not too late to show up if you're hearing this on Tuesday night, which may not be likely.
Or Wednesday morning. Just come on by.
Come on out. Just a little bit else what's going on, and then we've got maybe, see what else we got in store for you on the podcast today.
We'll throw a little curveball at Geoff. I have something in mind.
Nabil's going to try to trick me. So, but yeah, it was an interesting meeting for board of directors.
It was. Yeah. There were a lot of motions.
There was a lot of motions on the table.
So, and all of them had to do with bylaws changes.
That's right. Pretty much everything today, the big story is looking at some bylaws changes. And sort of historically, if you look back to last year, we had a board of directors meeting and a membership meeting that looked at some bylaws changes, just one big motion to make a number of changes to the bylaws that would reduce the size of the board of directors. And again, kind of looking back at that, it was kind of a messy board of directors meeting at the time. Everything did pass from the board of directors. But then we went forward to the membership meeting and the proposal failed at the membership meeting. We've now kind of fast forwarded to this year, late last year, and our president appointed a new presidential advisory group and brought in some new voices, took a lot of feedback from everything that was heard. Sort of just the procedural issues, how the proposal, came to be, what was in the proposal and how they would propose to reduce the size of the board of directors, kind of revisited everything with all that feedback and had some new proposals.
And also a lot of how do we get this information out to people
for sure
way ahead of time so they've got time to kind of digest it and wrap their heads around it.
You bet. So we all kind of culminated that today in the board of directors meeting, came forth with something like 6 different proposals out of that presidential advisory group that seeks to kind of scale back just a little bit the size of the board of directors to a little bit more manageable size, tweak a few things, and that will go forward to a membership meeting that's going to take place end of the year
in October.
At October at our annual conference.
Which will be in Tulsa this year.
Yes, we're going to have that in Tulsa.
Yep.
So you can look forward to that. But we wanted to at least cover at least a handful of the things that were covered at Board of Directors so you can go ahead and get an idea of what that's going to look like. You're going to get tons more information from us so you can see exactly what the proposals are. So this is just a little bit of a quick forecast of what that looked like.
Yeah.
So the first and kind of the primary thing, I was going to cover kind of the major one that came down. And this was one of the big pieces of how our board of directors is made up is sort of a pro rata allotment based on the size of your local board. And what it is right now is for every 150 members that your local board has, you get a director on the Oklahoma Association's board.
An additional director,
right. So everything else that's already in the bylaws that allots it. So what they looked at that and realized that, it just adds a large number of people to the board. Some of our larger boards were having trouble finding people to fill those positions because they had so many allotted. So the PAG first looked at it. They originally looked at it and said, let's do one for every 500 members. Got some feedback that maybe that was too much. That was a little bit too big of a jump, and offered an amendment that passed that changes it to every 250 members, you get an extra director. So that's going to scale it back a little bit. That's going to take off a handful of members for some of the boards. A lot of the boards that won't, maybe they'll lose one. Some boards won't lose any. But definitely you'll lose, probably 8, 9 or so out of the larger boards, the 2 larger boards. But that does sort of scale things back a little bit on that pro rata share to something that hopefully is a little bit more manageable.
Right.
And that's kind of one of the big ones. The other one that came up last year that was kind of an issue is last year there was a proposal to remove the local board presidents
from being automatically appointed.
Right. So right now the bylaws read that all local board presidents for all 18 of our local boards, they're automatically a director for the state association. And that last year was proposed to be removed, and got a lot of feedback that people didn't want that. And so that, under this new proposal that's come up, that's left in. So all of the local board presidents plus an additional automatic director that you get. So every board, no matter your size, you automatically get 2 people, one of which is your local board president, one of which is just whoever else that your board wants to appoint. And then based on that, depending on your size, for every 250 members, you get an additional director. That's kind of how the new proposal is going to read. And those are kind of the big ones. There's a couple other changes as well, though.
I think the other one was with past presidents.
Right.
Right now, all past presidents are part of the board of directors, and it was proposed to switch that to making that past presidents group an advisory committee through which they can pick 2 representatives that would represent them as past presidents at board of directors meetings.
Absolutely. So it's kind of neat. I think it's going to create a past presidents advisory council, and that's going to be made up of all the past presidents. And the idea is that that group is also available to provide advice and guidance to our executive committee or our leadership team or the president. But then also they're going to be able to select 2 members from their group that are past presidents to serve as directors for that year. And then they'll be able to, pick new ones as it goes along every year. So
kind of dig into their wealth of knowledge and their experience.
Exactly. Without just saying, well, you're automatically a director, and then they're in this, maybe they want to take a year off or something like that. Yeah. So that's going to make a little change there, and we'll reduce it from, almost 30 past presidents to now there will be 2, which again will be a pretty decent size reduction in the overall size of the board of directors based just on that past president allotment. But we'll still be able to tap into that past president's knowledge and background and experience as needed. So that'll still be hopefully a useful tool for our leadership.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the big ones. We have some other interesting changes that have come along as well, one of which is electronic voting for membership meetings. So, we've got over 11,000 members, almost 11,500 members statewide, and usually we have 1 membership meeting per year, sometimes 2 if there's for some reason a special one that needs to be called, although that's rare. But that's sometimes hard for people to make it in, right? If you live in a far part of the state, if you're in Southwest Oklahoma and we're having our board of directors or our membership meeting in Tulsa, for example, that's a long drive if you can't make it in. And so to kind of get with the times, there was a proposal to have, for membership meetings, the ability to have kind of an online electronic vote. And that passed, and that'll be something else that'll be coming forward for consideration, which is kind of an exciting thing to be able to offer that, just to be able to get a better, more whole read of the membership, right? So that everybody gets an opportunity to jump on there and vote, as opposed to, only a few hundred people maybe being able to come, if that. Yeah.
And you mentioned distances, scheduling conflicts, like multiple things can happen. So This gives, like you're saying, everyone a voice to be able to share their opinion.
Yeah, and there's not many things that we have membership votes on. I mean, it's only a couple of things. One of which is bylaws changes, for example. So there's not a huge need for frequent and significant membership votes. So again, it's a long ways to drive for one vote, for example, that you could maybe be able to do online. So that's kind of a neat little modernization thing that'll be coming down the pipeline as well.
Right. Maybe with that, it'd be like live streaming too.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's just a quick update of a handful of things that came out of board of directors on that proposal. Of course, there were other updates from committees and things like that, but that was kind of the big substantive thing that we had going on. And so I wanted to give you that update and that just a little foreshadowing of some of the things you can look forward to. And again, that vote for the membership is going to take place in October at our annual conference in Tulsa. So look forward to that in the future.
Yes. And so, like we were saying, we were here live in downtown Oklahoma City for a Capitol conference that a lot of those events kick off tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this right now, or if you're listening to this Wednesday morning, if it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, doesn't matter. You can still make your way down here if you wanted to get some fantastic information.
Absolutely. Just a quick little highlight of what's going on. We've got the Oklahoma City Mayor, David Holt's going to come in, talk to us about some local issues. We've got some state issue panel that's going to be going on that's going to have some legislators that are going to be here to talk about a variety of issues. We've got a big pollster coming in, and I'm really excited about this. Bill Shepard with Sooner Poll is coming in, and he's going to talk to us about a variety of things, any number of things. But the cool part is that today's Super Tuesday. Of course, Oklahoma has presidential primary as well as some, congressional primaries going on and some other issues. But we've got 14 states going on. It's going to be a huge issue, primarily in the Democratic primary for president, to see what's going on. And he's going to be able to talk to us about that, analyze the vote, see what's going on. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
That'll be really interesting because it'll be real time.
Absolutely.
Because he's like, I'm going to wait until tonight to tell you what I'm talking about tomorrow.
Yeah. So it's going to be fresh, and that's going to be really fun. So, and then after that in the afternoon, we're going to head on over to the Capitol for our day at the Capitol, go talk to our legislators. So like Nabil said, it's not too late. Jump online, okrealtors.com/Capitol Conference so you can see the when and the where and all that, and just head on down and come join us. We'll make room for you.
Yep, for sure.
Yep. Well, Nabil, what else we got?
All right, so as promised, the curveball.
Okay.
Well, it's not really. I mean, you should know this. All right, tell us about an interesting legal line call that you've gotten recently, because we haven't talked about this in a while.
We haven't. You know what? I actually got one today. I talked to somebody today, and it's an issue that I think is a very challenging issue when it comes up for people. And this has to do with the Residential Property Disclosure Act and sort of in the aftermath of what happens when a deal goes bust. And this is just a fact scenario that I think is worth mentioning because I've heard of this type of scenario before. And so I'm going to lay out the scenario for you first. So you've got a seller who, before they ever listed their property, they actually hired an inspector to come in and do a pre-listing inspection, okay, just to see what was up.
Yeah.
That inspector didn't note anything about the roof, okay, just didn't make any comments about it. They then get the property under contract, and the buyers have their inspector come in, and the buyer's inspector says, it looks like maybe there's some issues with the roof. There's some problems with a couple of shingles. There's some flashing meshing, and recommended that you have a roofer come in and inspect it. So they brought a roofer to come in, and that roofer recommended that they have the roof replaced, that the roof was bad, needed to be replaced. Okay. That's not funny, but right. but it's interesting how, and I'm just looking at it outside in, like everyone would have a different perspective going into looking at what's happening. Right. So you've got an inspector that seems to say no problem. You've got an inspector that says maybe something. You've got a roofer saying need a new roof. Well, the sellers wanted to get a second opinion, so they had a different roofer come in who agreed with the assessment of that first roofer that says, yep, looks like this needs to have a new roof. Well, the sellers are kind of dug in a little bit. And anyway, this deal busts, right? Because they say, we're not going to fix the roof. We don't think there's a problem with it. The roof is fine.
Because our inspector said it was okay.
Right, exactly. So these buyers, they go on about their business. And the seller says, I think everybody got it wrong. We had our inspector that we trust who said there's no issue. And I think now they're actually going to be hiring in another roof inspector to come in and try to give a third opinion. Well, I get a call from the broker and they say, what do we do now in terms of disclosure? Because you've got the Residential Property Disclosure Act that's really creating a bit of a nightmare in this scenario that scares me for them a little bit, because what the Residential Property Disclosure Act requires as a real estate broker, it says that if you are representing a seller and there is a defect with the property that you know about that the seller is not disclosing, then you as the real estate broker are required to make that disclosure. And if you don't, then if somebody pursues a claim, a buyer comes along, pursues a claim under the Property Disclosure Act that said you didn't disclose this problem, you didn't disclose this defect.
After they've bought the property.
Now I've got to fix it. You should have disclosed it. I'm going to hold you responsible. One, they can go after the seller if the seller should have disclosed it. But if you're the broker and you knew about it and you didn't disclose it, now they can come after you as well.
Double roof.
Exactly. Yeah, right. But it just opens up, the idea that one, that seller, maybe or maybe they don't have deep pockets, but everybody has this impression that, it's a real estate company, like they're gonna have deep pockets, so let's sue them too. And I've seen cases where brokers have been sued under the Residential Property Disclosure Act. And so the question came to me is, do we have to disclose this? Because the seller is saying we're not disclosing it. And what happens if this third roofer comes in and says, well, yeah, no, I think the roof is probably fine. Okay. But
whose word do you go with?
Right. And this is where it's a nightmare scenario where, the point that I made at that is, look, you've got this problem now. Even if another roofer comes in and says there's no problem, you've got two that have come in and said that there is a problem. You've got one inspector that said there's some kind of a problem. And so you've got these competing opinions. My view of that is that it probably does create a scenario where you should disclose it. I think that in that scenario, you've got two roofers that are coming in and saying there's a problem. Even if you've got a third that says there isn't, I mean, this is just a terrible scenario to be in.
What if you
right?
got a fourth that said that isn't, and now it's a tie?
I mean, it goes on and on, but you've got at least two professionals in the industry saying, yes, there's problems with this roof.
So surely there must be something. Like, it might not be dire, but there's something.
Right. And so, I think there's ways to handle it. Obviously, this is a seller who seems to be, a little bit difficult and says that they absolutely refuse to have an insurance claim on their roof, that they're not going to do it. But you've got to be able to look at your own liability as a broker and say, okay, this is this scenario that we're in. We've got reports from professionals that say there's a problem. Does that implicate me now to disclose that if my seller's refusing to? And then you have to take a really hard look at that and say, either I'm not going to disclose it because I'm willing to take on that risk, which you're certainly welcome to do, or I'm going to disclose it against my seller's wishes, which obviously creates a problem with that relationship.
Lose the seller,
sure.
Right.
Or just to say that, it's not worth that risk. And so I'm just going to, if the seller refuses to disclose it, I'm just going to have them go find somebody else because I don't want to open myself up to that risk. It's a hard conversation to have. It's a hard scenario, but wanted to bring that up that, when you've got those reports from professionals saying there's a problem and your seller refuses to disclose it, you have to think real seriously about where that puts you as a broker if you don't disclose it, because now there's a defect. And so just kind of highlight that as kind of an issue that everybody needs to watch out for, that can pop up when a deal goes bust based on inspections, kind of like how this did, and what you do in that aftermath.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So like in something like that, just out of curiosity, do you have to say black and white, there's something wrong and there's something isn't wrong? Or could you say, hey, we had a couple people come out, one said that it might need replacing, the other said it's okay?
Yeah, I think that's one way you can handle it, right? You can handle it by saying, we've had reports from
you're welcome to bring
roofers,
your own.
Right. And again, it's just a disclosure issue.
Yeah.
It says we've had reports from roofers that the roof may have certain defects with it, right? I mean, you can explain that and disclose it in different ways that
than just saying the roof needs to be replaced.
Exactly. You can kind of as long as you're being truthful and honest in that disclosure, that's the issue. But of course, if you've got a seller who's refusing to do it, then that certainly is an issue. But you got to watch out for your own liability and see what kind of liability and risk you're willing to accept.
Right.
So just a heads up on that.
Maybe talk your seller into it.
Yep, for sure.
Well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, Nabil, I think we're going to wrap this one up. We've had a long day here at Capital Conference.
It's not over yet.
It's not over yet. And we got another long day tomorrow. But we wanted to make sure that we got episode 109 out for everybody to enjoy.
Yes. Enjoy they will.
Yes.
Hopefully.
And we also want to give a shout out to Will Gattenby, who's joined us in our makeshift studio.
In the silent studio.
Our CapCon studio. So he just wanted to take part and hang out with us. So we appreciate having guests in our studio.
Yeah.
Even just...
This is bigger than a usual studio.
Yes, it is.
I like it.
So, well, again, we appreciate you listeners coming back every single week at Talking Real to take part in all the great knowledge that we're trying to drop here.
That's right. And if you haven't done so yet, leave us a rating, write us a review. Those help a lot, and we love hearing from you. And share this podcast with a friend.
Absolutely. So we hope to see you tomorrow at CapCon, and if not, we'll see you at the next one. But until next time, we will see you next Tuesday on Talking Real.